Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Just to let you know, we've got Councillor Hobbs is online, Councillor Day is online, and Deputy CAO John Irving is also online. So I'm going to call the GEP meeting, the open meeting, to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. So we're starting off the meeting with a presentation. Yannick Simovich, Board Chair for Tourism Richmond, and Nancy Small, CEO for Tourism Richmond. Please come forward, have a seat, and give us your presentation.
Hi. I have to say, this is so much more intimate than downstairs. I like it. Yeah, So, good afternoon, everyone, Mayor, Council, and City senior staff. My name is Yannick Simovich, and I'm honored to serve as the Chair of Tourism Richmond's Board of Directors, as well as the General Manager of the Vancouver Airport Marriott Hotel. Joining me today is Nancy Small, the CEO of Tourism Richmond, and together we are privileged to stand before you to discuss the vibrant tourism landscape of our city. We are thrilled to be here today, eager to share insights, updates, and collaborative programs that will further enhance Richmond's position as a premier destination for visitors from around the globe. Our commitment to promoting Richmond's unique cultural heritage, incredible culinary scene, and unparalleled hospitality remains steadfast, and we look forward to exploring how we can continue to work together for the benefit of our community and its visitors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. We appreciate your time and consideration as we delve into these important discussions. We also want to acknowledge that the continued support of partnership of the City of Richmond, Mayor, Councillors, and City staff. We literally could not do this without you. So thank you very much. And now Nancy will now take you through some further updates, and we'll welcome any question at the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Yannick. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here again today as we give our yearly update to the group here. Tourism Richmond is Richmond's not-for-profit destination marketing organization, otherwise known as DMO. We have the privilege of creating the programs, promotions that will attract visitors both for leisure and for business to our city. Our team is very passionate about what we do, what we do, and why we do it. You can see here our purpose, vision, values, and mission, which are the underpinning for the entire organization and what we do. Notice that community and community benefit are woven through every part of this underpinning of the organization. We're always better off working together than separately, and we fully recognize that we're part of a larger team. Tourism Richmond is but one element of Team Richmond, and we're one element of the entire tourism ecosystem, and we continue to work together and to meet our mutual goals. The last time we talked to you, a year ago, almost to the day actually, weirdly enough, we were talking about how travel was back, and really excited to share with you that 2023 was an incredible year for tourism in our city and in our province as well. We are an extremely diverse team, and we've had some pretty good success in the last year, some accolades that I wanted to share with you. The top is a picture from the BC Tourism Awards, and Tourism Richmond was recognized as DMO of the Year in British Columbia, so we're very proud of that. As well, we were a finalist in the Richmond Chamber of Commerce Awards in the Business Excellence Awards for Employer of the Year. Awards aren't everything, but they certainly do provide some proud moments for the team and for our board and hopefully for our city as we get recognized on both the local and regional stage. It's been quite a year, as I said, since we saw you last, and here's an image of some of our marketing images that we promote to the rest of Canada and within Seattle and Oregon. And these visuals and the stories behind them, our website, social media, all the things we do from a marketing standpoint, tell the story about why and who we are and how unique our community is. We've been very fortunate to partner with you, the City of Richmond, and with our Hotel Association on 2 destination enhancements, a free shuttle from Central Richmond to Steveston, and also Bike Valet in Steveston. And we'll be running both of those programs. In fact, they both started this past weekend. So really great initiatives, again, that show the partnership and the power of partnerships that we have with the City of Richmond. Regenerative tourism is an initiative that we're working very closely with, again, with our partners here at the city and with our Regenerative Tourism Advisory Committee. Sustainability is one thing, but regenerative tourism is the concept of developing travel experiences that ensure employees, businesses, communities, and ecosystems can flourish. So it takes it one step beyond sustainability, which is a very important part of regenerative tourism, but we really are trying to focus on moving the needle and moving things even beyond. So that socially we're triple bottom line, that we're acknowledging all of the things that are important to this community. This past year, we've been really active on the travel media side of things, and we were very fortunate to host a group of American journalists back in for Lunar New Year, back in February. Incredibly successful. You see some images from this great trip that we were able to partner with our Hotel Association on to welcome these journalists from the U.S. And today, actually, just in the Seattle Times, I'm not sure if some of you saw it, there was an article about how Richmond has the best dim sum in North America. 4 restaurants were acknowledged, so that was great to see. And these journalists that we work with on a regular basis help tell the story and help to promote us, but from an objective third party. Our team is tooling up, and these are just some examples. You're not meant to read these. It's really just meant to show an example of some of the data tools that we subscribe to on behalf of our industry and on behalf of the City of Richmond. And we're very focused on being a data-driven organization. Things have changed a lot in marketing and destination marketing in the time even that I've been in Richmond for 6 years. And we continue to push the envelope on that. Sorry. Okay. And then future, what does it look like? Artificial intelligence. This is something everybody, I'm sure you all are talking about as well. We've just recently launched an AI trip planning tool on our website and through our social media tools. It's called Ask Lulu. And it's a conversational where you can ask about experiences, where the best dim sum restaurants are, and then it will feed you like a conversation on a text. So it's pretty cool. And then finally, I just want to acknowledge our team at our organization and our board too, I guess. I should acknowledge the board. But the team is incredible, very diverse group of young and old, I would say, me being part of the old group, and really excited. They're extremely passionate about what they do and really, truly some of the best in the business. We've created an atmosphere that people want to come work in our city and in our organization. Looking to the future, acknowledging certainly continued challenges, headwinds. We're very optimistic about 2024, but there will be challenges. There's no question about that. Competitive pressures that we're feeling within our industry, within the entire country are fierce, actually. It makes it really imperative that we're thinking to the future, and we're not only thinking about the here and now, and that's why those initiatives that I talked about are future focused. We're currently midway through, as I'm sure you know, our approved 5-year MRDT program, Municipal Regional District Tax, that's enabled via yourselves, the City of Richmond. And we really believe that right now is great timing for us to think long-term and to think about long-term master planning that we would like to partner with the City of Richmond on. The shared vision that we're going to create will help us be ready for the future. And I truly believe we have the city, we have the team, and we have the approach that will bring us where we need to be. Thank you very much. And Yannick and I would be very happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor McNulty with a question.
Yeah, thanks very much. A good report, good step because we have it on the agenda as well. So I would ask this of our staff. As you well know, the culture has changed very much in Richmond and the demographics have changed. I guess my first question is, do we have any metrics in terms of the demographics of who comes to Richmond? Like if they go to the hotels are filled, where do they come from? Do we have that data?
We subscribe to a tool called Environics, which is essentially mobility data. So it doesn't say that Councillor Bill McNulty was in Richmond, but it says if your cell phone was. And it will say that you were here, and we measure it if you're here for over 24 hours. So it doesn't measure people coming back and forth commuting. It is for over 24 hours. So we have specific information on how many people, where they're coming from, and this is just new. This is in the last year that we've been able to access
Well, I think
this data.
thank you. I think that's important to know where I came from. Did I come from Britain? Did I come from the United
Because
States?
that helps us determine where we're going to market and where we're going to actually invest our marketing dollars.
Do we have any demographics on why they came here? Like, why did you come to Richmond? Was the cheapest hotel route, or I was only 24 hours in Richmond, so I got off the plane and stayed? Do we know why?
Definitely not the cheapest hotel room.
I was trying.
Sorry. But yes, we do. And we continually are in conversation with our visitors about why they do come. And there's a couple of different reasons from what we've learned over the years. The cultural diversity, the accessibility, convenience, certainly that plays a part. There's no question about it. And the regionality of coming to Metro Vancouver. But for Richmond specifically, as we think about the things that we promote, it really is, as you mentioned, the culinary scene, the cultural diversity, Steveston, and the shopping. Those are really the reasons why they come to our city.
Okay, well, that's good to know. The other question I have, and I guess we'll be talking about it later, is how can we better use the tax? We've got a pretty good tax base growing every day.
We do.
How can we better use that to continue the tourism?
I think that's an excellent segue into the discussion around the long-term approach and how we can engage the community and engage the industry with how better and how we can continue to use it effectively to drive business into the city.
Okay, and that was my next comment, Your Worship. I'll just finish up here, is to engage the community.
Absolutely.
I think the community is the basis of other people coming in and the welcoming of the community. And I think that's extremely important because the other question I had on your second or third page, your wheel, everything is great, and then I see attractions. Why would I come to Richmond? What is it that I would go to Richmond for?
We have 2 National Historic Sites in Steveston, and we also have one of the best shopping centers in Metro Vancouver.
Just remember, 90% of the people of Richmond have never been to either of them.
So that goes back to the community piece and making sure that the community is engaged and understands why people come to this community.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thanks. Just 2 questions through the chair. First one's about Duck Island development, which was recently approved, and you provided a letter of support, and so did the Richmond Night Market organization. How will Tourism Richmond work with the Duck Island development early on? Like, is there a set of meetings or schedule that you can help to drive that Tourism Richmond component in that?
We have met with, or I have met specifically with the hotel component, which are Hilton hotels. There's 7 to 9 hotels potentially in that particular development on the plan. And they're very interested. They see the statistics from Richmond and they understand what the demand is here in this market and also within Metro Vancouver. So we're in active conversations with them. In terms of the developers of Duck Island, absolutely. They came and presented to our board of directors and to our senior staff about a year ago, I think it was, when they were in the early stages of the engagement with yourselves. So this is incredibly important, obviously, as you know, for the community, and we'll make sure that whenever we're needed or however we're needed, we'll be there.
Just a follow-up on that one. Do you see long-term the night market existing even after the phases are all developed?
So I was remiss when you said, what are the attractions in Richmond? The Richmond Night Market is arguably our biggest attraction, most visited, not only for visitors from out of town, but also from the local Metro Vancouver residents. So specifically to your question, the Richmond Night Market will be an absolutely crucial part, I believe, of this development. And I know they're in good conversation.
Great, thanks. My last question is in regards to YVR zoning regulation change, and I'm not sure how aware you are of that. The city was not really informed of the zoning regulations, which one such impact would be they've listed that wildlife or bird habitat is a no-no in the flight path. I used your AI, Lulu AI, minutes ago and searched where's the best place to go bird watching at a YVR, and they listed Flight Path Park, Larry Berg as number 3, and across the water, Terra Nova and Iona. So do you have any insight into how drastic these zoning regulations might impact our tourism? Like
I do not. So beg your pardon on that, but I do not. But I'll certainly do some homework on that. Thank you for raising that question.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the delegation. Thanks for the presentation. I had the opportunity to see it at the Economic Advisory Committee meeting a couple weeks ago, and there was lots of interest on the committee about the shuttle and the bike valet expanding possibly, and also some ideas about agritourism, hopefully in the future. I just have a question. Do you know the name of the 4 dim sum restaurants that are the best ones?
Oh, now that's a very, that's a test that Karen was one of them. I've got it on my phone. I can tell you in about 3 minutes.
Just send us the article.
Yes, I'll send you the article.
Yeah, and who published
absolutely.
it. And then I'm going to compare it to what artificial intelligence says. So this is a little test.
So artificial versus an actual journalist who's been to the,
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what your result is.
Great,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Howe.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions.
Yeah.
Now, Councillor Manati asked questions about why or what attracted people to Richmond. But do you at the same time have some feedbacks from the visitors, what they want to see more or to be improved in the city of Richmond?
We do. And it really stems to the question actually about attractions and what there is to do when people come to this city. And I always use the very bad example of a Ferris wheel, and that's not a good example, so forgive me, but I do use that because people understand what it means to have a Ferris wheel in a place in a community, because it's a magnet. It's a magnet for people, and currently that's something that we need to consider thinking about as we move to the future and to the future planning. Not a Ferris wheel, but equivalent of what that would be. So I think that things that are missing are generally around what there is to do and maybe the lack of awareness around what there is to do.
Okay, thank you. My second question is about, the origins of the visitors. What countries are they coming from? I think the demographic may have changed. In the past, I think we may have a lot of visitors from China, but, what has been the changes?
We're still getting some friends and relatives from China. As air access hopefully increases in the next several years, China may come back. It will not be what it was, which was around 20 to 25% of the visitors from pre-COVID. But we are seeing rest of Canada and Pacific Northwest is really where the main drivers are. Some California and weirdly enough, and I think this is due to air access, some Texas as well. But it's really rest of British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, and Pacific Northwest.
Okay, very good. My final question is about, we know that 2026, we will have the World Cup, FIFA in soccer.
Oh, really? Never heard of it.
Yeah. So, how we can to prepare ourselves?
We're extremely excited about the FIFA World Cup coming to Metro Vancouver. The games themselves will be at BC Place, as you know, 7 games, two Team Canada games. And the hospitality and tourism community is extremely excited about the opportunities that we're going to have to showcase our region, not only to the people coming for the games, for those 7 games, but to the rest of the world as those games are broadcast around the world. This is the biggest sporting event, and it will be the biggest ever World World Cup because the number of games they have the biggest number of countries and the most number of games. So yeah, we're currently in conversation with how and what we will do to support FIFA in terms of strategy around what the tourism piece is going to look like. But there's the in-games piece, but then there's the post-games piece, which arguably almost as important.
Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's
Huge
great, and we've seen it with the Women's World Cup a few years back. It was jam-packed when there was a game.
It's going to be
All
fantastic.
right, we've got a question from Councillor Day online.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Great presentation as always. My question is, what is the the hotel occupancy? We used to have the highest in BC. Are we still there?
It's not far, not the highest, but it's definitely there. I'll give you an example of Hotel Vancouver in the first 5 months year to date. We're somewhere around 80%, and Richmond was just around 78 to 79%. So very, very close. Big gap in rate, but in occupancy pretty similar. But in the first quarter of 2024, Richmond beat downtown Vancouver in occupancy by about 7 points. So just
Just a follow-up question, has the hotel strike affected our numbers at all? It doesn't sound like it.
no, it hasn't.
Okay. And then my last question is, I've always been a big proponent for RV parks. Would that benefit tourism?
I think it could. I mean, bringing people into this part of the world, and this is something you and I've even talked about, but bringing people into this part of the world, whatever way, would benefit. I think it's a question of where and how, but it's certainly, other communities have benefited from it. So from a tourism perspective.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, so thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
For your presentation.
Very much.
And the next item on the list is the plan, so
Thank you.
probably stick around for that. So that is the next item, the development of the Richmond Tourism Master Plan. Jill Sherry, Katie Furland, we've got your report. What would you like to add?
Nothing to add, but happy to take questions.
All right, we'll ask for questions. Councillor McNulty.
Thanks very much for the report. And follow up on what we've already had, part of the questioning. First of all, when do you think we'll have this report done by?
So,
Go ahead.
through the chair to Councillor McNulty, we're currently anticipating that the final report would be done in Q4 2025, so by the end of next year, but a draft would come forward before that.
Is there any way to move that up?
We could certainly discuss that with Tourism Richmond, as we're suggesting that they take the leadership in the development of the plan. But I would caution that we want to make sure there's a robust consultation and engagement period of the development of the plan, because it would be long-term forward-looking, and we'd want to make sure that the broad voice of the community is heard.
Okay, I'm just, I made a couple of lists. I kind of wonder what the vision is today, given the cultural dynamics of our community, what it'll be tomorrow, and obviously that will change. I guess what I missed from the report is I believe tourism is supported primarily by the community. Okay, yes, we get tourism in and they come in, but in terms of the other things with regard to tourism, it's your base of your community that supports it as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 National Historic Sites, and I would bet when you look at those people that have gone there and asked 230,000 people in Richmond, have you ever been to the Gulf of Georgia Cannery? You'd be surprised of the metrics you'd get back. So I guess on that, because I think we have so much to sell, and we've undersold it, everything from the highway to heaven to the cultural aspects that we have, the art and the history, et cetera. I think we don't have a brochure. And at one time I thought we did. I even thought the city put it out, of things to come and see and do in Richmond. You know, if you wanted to, if you're a cyclist, where's the best route to go and where can you go? Could you tell the people of Richmond, you know, you can cycle 29 miles around Lulu Island? Probably most people around the table in this room don't know that. Okay, which you can, all right? And so and you would come here for that or whatever. So I guess hopefully that's one of the things that will come about. I saw you were going to engage experts, and I guess you are the experts. I hate that word experts or consultants or whatever. There's somebody you pay a high price for, and they just regurgitate what you want to give them. You are the experts, and people are the experts. Are we going to, it says you're going to have a committee. Are you going to utilize some members of the community groups, like the Asian business community, for example, association, like the Chamber of Commerce, like the sporting community? I mean, Sports Council, we've got 52. The arts group, we got 100.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty. So yes, in terms of engaging those groups across the community, absolutely. There's a plan for a really robust engagement and consultation process built into this, and through Tourism Richmond's networks, as well as our own and others in the community, we would look to make sure that that outreach is broad. And I might also offer that through that engagement process, we expect a lot of awareness would be raised of the tourism assets we currently have, and then opportunity to explore where they would go in the future. So that might help assist with some of what you were mentioning in terms of awareness of the assets we have, such as our historic sites.
And I will get my last plug, Your Worship, and thank you, Laura, for bringing up, agricultural tourism. I think that's got to be a #1 thing on your list. Thanks very much.
Councillor Hobbs online.
Thank you, and through the chair. First of all, thank you very much for the report. I really appreciated the analysis and the approach outlined on GP14. 2 quick questions. One is regarding kind of the strategic alignment. If you look at Metro Vancouver, even British Columbia and Canada, when it comes to tourism, but if you think of it strategically from a Metrovan point of view, can you just comment on how the guiding principles and approach, how that'll fit into a more collaborative approach with all our partners across Metro Vancouver and even beyond that?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs. So yes, absolutely. As part of the development of the Tourism Master Plan, we would also look to bring in partners such as Destination BC, others that we work with in the region already. So those are existing relationships that we hold. So this would very much be development of a Made in Richmond sort of approach that takes into consideration that regional context. So I would say through existing relationships, through the alignment that we already have with some of those regional strategies, we would look to build on that in this plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe you just have a quick comment. I mean, we hear these big numbers all the time, but obviously there's an economic impact that's substantial when you add everything up. So do you have any recent numbers on the economic impact for Richmond or British Columbia, for instance?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs. So the latest numbers that we have are 8 million visitors to Richmond, spending $2 billion directly. That's from 2019. And those are direct dollars only. So that's a tourist dollar at a restaurant. It's not the indirect impact into the community. So, maybe the transportation providers for delivery services that restaurant works with, the suppliers they buy from, that would all be part of the indirect impact of that $2 billion that is the direct impact. I would note that those numbers are not from a comprehensive study, and that they're also from 2019. So I have good news for you that Tourism Richmond is currently working on updating those numbers. So they've got a separate project underway right now that will look at the economic impact of the sector, right now in terms of contemporary times, post-COVID and all the factors that we have today. And that should be available in the next couple of months and will certainly inform how this work is also taken forward.
Well, thanks. I mean, look forward to getting the, newer information, of course, but it's just always such a huge economic impact for people. So thanks for that.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for this report. And this sounds pretty exciting and interesting. I know we've been approached by a couple of different groups, the Great Blue Heron Way, and I think the Fraser Canyon Trail, trying to link us up and be parts of those. And I imagine this strategy encompasses projects like that and then helps us have a bit of focus, if you will, on which particular ones we might take on or whether we take them on at all or how that relationship goes. Because I think we're constantly being bombarded with great ideas and how do we sort of, I think having a strategy will help us streamline and focus on where we really want to go with some of these. And I think some of these, like these walking trail, exploration trails and ability to connect other communities is really great, especially, with that, the piece that does have the, bird watching, access to nature and teaching people about nature. I think it sort of combines all those things that many of the other councillors have talked about. So I think, having this cohesive strategy will make it a lot easier for us to keep our eye on the ball of where we're going. I don't know if you have any comments on that. But.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, no particular comments, agreed. We are really looking to kind of focus efforts so that those can be concentrated to build out kind of more than the sum of their parts, so to speak, right? I think what you're mentioning in terms of the regional connections and some of those regional projects also goes to what Councillor Hobbs was saying in terms of like, how's there regional alignment here? So yes, I think as we look to the kind of long-term growth of the industry in Richmond and what we may need to do to get there to those goals, that will help us focus on which are the projects that make the most sense for Richmond and in that regional context as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Just to follow up on Councillor McNulty's inquiry there, and you mentioned the word consultants in that, and we've got experts, you two are the expert, we have experts right there. And I look at the financial impact, there's no financial impact to the city, it's going to come from tourism. Am I correct in saying we're not hiring consultants, we're not hiring outside people, we're going to do all this in-house with Tourism Richmond?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, so yes, there is no financial impact to the city, and it is up to Tourism Richmond how they would move this forward, whether there would be consultants procured. They may find that necessary to do some of the research analysis and also to move it forward in that way. So that would be a decision of that organization and not of the city because it's not city money.
And how much do we fund Tourism Richmond?
Tourism Richmond receives approximately 2/3 of our MRDT funds. So it's not city money that funds them directly. That's through the municipal and regional district tax. So it is the tax from the hotels.
And can you tell me what that was in 2023?
I don't have those numbers to hand, but we could certainly provide that information.
Thank you.
Councillor Day on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. So I'm going to go back to the same question I asked Tourism Richmond. We had 78 to 79% hotel occupancy last year, and that's very, very good. Has there been any thought about considering an RV park in Richmond? Because I know that the ones around Metro Vancouver are packed every single week in the summer, and they bring in a lot of economic benefit to the city. And I'm thinking of like a place like McDonald Beach, for example, would be an excellent place to have an RV park.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, so part of the value of putting together a long-term strategy like this master tourism plan will allow us to not only learn about kind of current state, but also future opportunities. So certainly assessing and testing the market for that sort of tactic or others, could be useful as part of that foundational research that would be done as part of the longer term plan. I would say that I anticipate that the tourism master plan will be strategic in nature, so it would not be sort of tactical one by one, but it would set basically that direction for the tactical plans that we do submit every year as part of our municipal and regional district tax application and ongoing work.
All right, I might just give you a call. Thank you very much, Mayor Brody.
All right, but on that question, I do want to add, we did the study a number of years ago, and it wasn't financially viable for the city to do that. And as I recall, we then went out to the private market to see if anyone else was interested, and no one was. I think the feeling was that it's a big capital expense, not a cost-effective use of land, if you have it, on anything other than just a short-term basis, if you happen to have it, you can find a use for it, that kind of thing. So, and of course, the last time we had one was where the Oval is right now, and that was not for RV living, it was just RV parking. So, all that is yet to come. So may I have a motion on the, okay, so that's moved and seconded. Any further comments on that? Okay, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. For those of you who are online, Councilors Day and Hobbs, if you're opposed to something, you got to make sure that I know about it. The next one is the Hubai Community Facility Field House, et cetera. Martin Yanis, Mandy Baines. Okay, we have your report. What do you want to tell us about it?
Thank you, Chair. Just one edit on GP 25 at the bottom page. The 1% public art contribution for this project is 130,000, not 190,000. And we are happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks very much for the detailed report. Appreciate it, and it's good. Just out of curiosity, I see you've got $19 million. I thought we put in the budget, at last year's budget, correct me if I'm wrong, but we only had $114 million in it. Was that because it wasn't in the capital?
Through the Chair to Councilor McNulty, I believe you mean
14 million, I should say. 14 million.
Through the Chair to Councilor McNulty, we actually estimated the cost at 17 million. Once we completed the programming and did cost estimates, this is the number that we received.
Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that we had it. This is, I noticed the name, this is was primarily a community facility, correct, to go on?
Through the Chair, that is correct.
Okay, and I hope we continue to refer to it as a community facility with soccer aligned with it. And I'm no problem with what you have in there. What was the, we have two flights. I thought we were going to have 10,000 square feet on the bottom floor originally, if it was a one-story building.
Through the Chair to Councilor McNulty, Council directed us in 2018 to look at a facility of up to 10,000 square feet. And after reviewing the program with our stakeholder groups, that fit.
Okay, you didn't come back. I would have pushed for more because I believe the building's already too small before we get going, and for a community facility. The other question I had was the existing building that we've got, the 970 square feet. The recommendation is to demolish it, and to be quite frank with you, I'm not in favor of that because that building still has some use. If it's going to cost us $120,000 to demolish it, it only costs $350 to furbish it. The difference is $230,000. For $230,000, we could have a facility that would handle dance, could handle wrestling, could handle a number of groups, Tai Chi, et cetera. And I'm wondering if we got it, I guess, and how much study has been put into that building to see if we can save it.
Through the Chair to Councilor McNulty, we conducted a building assessment and we found that it is in poor condition, and we're recommending demolition should Council direct us to revisit that and change the purpose of the building. We would come back to Council with kind of what that means and the cost associated with it. We just looked at either renovating as is or demolishing the building.
Well, thank you for that candid answer. Your Worship, I'm going to move that after as an amendment. To be quite frank with you, I think we made a mistake when we demolished the whole pools, and we might have been able to use some of that. So before we throw it away, if you wish, let's make sure that we're doing the right shop. The other question I had on page 30, once I squeezed in my eyes and read it, on the second floor, could we have that as one room with dividables as opposed to calling it one room, two room, like we're doing with, I believe we're doing that with the lawn bowls, where we're doing some sliding doors to separate off.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, divider wall versus permanent wall was discussed, and the building committee supported a permanent wall as a maximized use and flexibility on both sides of the multipurpose spaces.
Well, I would think the building committee was primarily the soccer people, okay? For community use, I would think that we should have something that could be used by, as soon as you put the wall in, you automatically limit its use. A small room versus a big room. We are really poor for community space in this city as a large city, and the sooner we can leave it open and have it such that majority of groups can utilize it, I think we would do that. Again, the building committee recommended, correct?
Through the chair, Councillor
Okay.
McNulty, the building committee did include the West Richmond Association, and they were in full support of the program, the site, and the building forum.
I'd like to hear what the rest of council would think about that, but I would be for moving that we leave that open for the moment for further discussion to see what, if we want to do adult daycare, which I think we should be doing, getting into in the city. We got after-school care. We've got a lot of good community programs that are going to need space. And as soon as you limit it, oh, I can't use your boy, it's not big enough, or it's too big, and whatever. We want it to be too big so that people can utilize it. Who is going to operate, through your worship, who's going to operate and who's going to have say? I want to come in there with adult daycare, et cetera. Who do I approach, the city?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the staff will be bringing forward a operating model and OBI report in the future for council consideration. But we anticipate that the operation would include our current model of partnering with an association or user group.
Okay. All right, more to come. Thank you.
I just want to clarify before we go to our next speaker, the number of square feet. So right now, we've got how many square feet?
We have, to the chair, we have 10,500 square feet.
No,
Sorry.
the old building,
975
square feet.
That is correct.
Okay, and now we're gonna have 10.5 plus 1,000 outdoor viewing usable space.
That is correct.
So basically, we've got, one way or the other, we've got 11.5.
That is correct.
Okay. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate those comments and some of the suggestions and potential amendments or motions that Councillor McNulty will make. I had some similar thoughts today. I walked the site and spent some time visualizing what it could be with the options presented to us today. I just need a couple of clarification questions before I get into my deeper questions. When I look at the attachment 1, the map of the existing site plan, there's a lot of dashed lines on there that, and then in small writing it says property line. So it looks like the Hugh Boyd Community Park is the kind of L-shape one, and that would mean that part of the turf fields are on the school district land. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, that is correct.
And then the little pink rectangle, which right now is just a group of trees when I was there, what does the pink rectangle in the center relate to?
Where are you referring to?
The pink rectangle.
Oh, there.
To the chair, to Councillor Wolf, the pink rectangles are actually pink circles. They're the cherry trees that will blossom in the spring.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, good choice. All right, I think that's it for my clarification stuff. So I have some concerns with the site selection. I looked at stood in both of the sites, and I just looked at the list comparison on our page 25, the pros and cons. So lose 9 mature trees or lose 5 mature trees. That's a part of it for me. And I think there was potential sites that wouldn't remove any mature trees. I know it says here we could have 3-to-1 replacement, and that would be potentially 29 trees we need to find space for. That I think is going to be tricky if you're talking about trees that would grow to maturity like the ones here now. I feel like there's a lot of utilities going on underneath. That's maybe why some other sites weren't chosen. But could staff comment on why a site like the existing gravel parking lot parallel to what would be option site B, why that wasn't considered?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, we actually looked at over 6 sites with the building committee and the stakeholders and staff. And for the purposes of the program and the sight lines and the access to the fields, the two options that we are presenting to council are the ones that the building committee supported, and they meet the program requirement or the program intent.
Okay, yeah, that, to me, looking at the pros and cons, that would have eliminated some of the cons and enhanced some of the pros, I thought. And then you mentioned 6 locations. I'm not familiar with all of them, but the 2 that were presented are very close to each other. And I think that parking lot potential, because we're going to be paving it anyway under the Rick Hansen Foundation accessibility certification, it says the gravel area is going to be paved anyway. So I assume by paving it, we're going to remove some of the existing infrastructure, and we'll probably gain parking spaces in doing so. And the trees that are in the parking lot, the gravel one specifically, are not bylaw sized trees and probably could be transplanted, and they're not that significant. Whereas I think if we were to actually work to retain the significant trees, of which, if I look at the building committee, there's no user group or representation there that has probably any value given to the trees, other than maybe parents or spectators who are in the group who probably have huddled under trees to have the shade while they watch the game at hand. I know I was watching a provincial game a month ago, and that's where everybody was watching, under the big mature shade trees on the side of the field. And I think it's a big lost opportunity here to not have that as an option. And I'll just almost finished here. I do support the field house existing one being retained. In the report, it mentions that it would be $350,000 to renovate and maintain. My question is, renovate to what standard? Because I think you see a lot of new buildings get built, and right away these brand new, very expensive spaces get used for storage. And I'd hate to see that happen to a building like this that we're projecting here. And so even if it's storage, you probably don't need to renovate so much if you're just storing things in it. So I'm not sure if staff can comment on what that renovation standard was referring to. And then I just have one more question.
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, the renovation standard is like for like, so we would update it according to the current kind of condition of what it is and bring it up to standard.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question to your worship is in regards to the part I think is the most exciting for me is that we might have a passive house standard building here, and that is elaborated on our page 26, where we're targeting the passive house standard. So could staff comment here on, is it like a sure thing that with this capital budget, we could do it?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, should council approve, we will target the passive house standard. It is the most robust kind of energy approach to buildings. And yes, we have allowed in the budget to certify to passive house.
Okay, so I just have someone follow up on that. I just have concern that when we do the bidding process, that someone might win the bid, but then say, oh, I don't do passive house. And then right away we lose that opportunity. Could you speak to that?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, when we hired our architects, we had part of the criteria was evaluation on them completing passive house projects. And so when we go out for tender, we would be doing the same.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start on this field house because I think that's an issue, and hearing from some of the other council members here with respect to what we're going to do with that. I really don't want to demolish that either. I think $350,000 is probably a worthwhile project to save that house and build it out. It's almost 1,000 square feet. I think we can be very creative on what we want to do with that, rather than having that used as a storage shed. So certainly, if Councillor McNulty or Councillor Wolf are going to make a motion with respect to that, I would be supporting that, so I don't have to speak once more. I can tell you right now, when I looked at this, and I had a few conversations with some other people, $19 million for a field house, very costly. Yes, it is soccer primary when you look at the groups that you consulted with respect to that, when you look at the design of that. My questions that I have to you on this is that the final cost, and you're going to see a common theme in this meeting because we're going to talk about costs and sticking to particular budgets. Or is that based on if we're putting shovels in the ground right today, the 19 million? Because it was at 14 million.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, this is if we put shovels in the ground, we start, the council approve this project and we start designing now.
In all likelihood, we're not going to start right now. So what I'm saying is we've seen it. It's been a common theme. We saw it over here on the lawn bowling thing, that they came back to us asking us for more money. We didn't give more money, so we had to change the scope of that particular project. So, you know, you don't have to answer this. I just want to state my point right out, because you're going to hear me talk about this as we talk about some of the other things here. The other part I just want to talk about is the flexibility of space. I have to agree with Councillor McNulty here. When you talk about a small multi-purpose room and a large multi-purpose room on the second floor, I believe it's worth our while to have some flexibility in that space, for example, of a removable wall. And I think that those are the words that were used. So let's say we're going to rent it out to a group. Maybe they're going to have a wedding or something there, or something of that nature that need a larger particular group. So I don't think it should be etched in stone type of structure. I think we need to be flexible on that second floor. You know, the first floor, fine. You need those change rooms. You even have flexible change rooms. You know, I think all of that is great. But my major concerns are sticking to the $19 million for a field house, and hopefully we're going to call it something else, not a field house. And the fact that we need to retain that historic or the old building and adjust the design of the second floor. Thank you.
We'll go online to John Irving. You have a comment, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just through you to Councillor Heed. Yeah, certainly the subsequent report is a subject of cost estimation and how that works through the process of defining a project. And yes, in cases like this, where there's a previous cost estimate that reflects, you know, a Class D or Class E estimate where we don't have a confirmed scope, we don't have a confirmed square footage, there will be different numbers, and those numbers will typically be quoted in the dollars of the day. So if there's an estimate provided 1, 2, 3 years previous, obviously when we get to this point, if there's an additional square footage or additional elements added to the project, that increases the cost, obviously. So when we reach this point, when we provide you a recommendation to approve the project budget based on the defined scope, yes, we are saying we will deliver the project for that amount. When we have the approved budget, Mr. Eunice and our project development crew, combined with the consultants and the quantity surveyors, have projected those costs now into the building window, assuming we get council approval at this point, that project to complete the detailed design, to complete the construction. We have a time frame in mind that reflects that cost estimate. So that actually, when we bring you forward a budget for formal approval by council and funding, that's the point at which we say, yes, we can complete for that budget. Estimates provided before that point typically don't reflect the actual final confirmed program. And certainly having this discussion is part of the process where, yes, we want to make sure absolutely we've got the program right, we've got the scope of the building right, so that everybody understands exactly what's going to be constructed. And that way we eliminate any risk as we go forward and procure the construction and complete that.
While we've got you virtually there, John, can you comment, instead of keeping that old building, if we wanted to add 1,000 square feet to this building, what would be the cost differential, you know, in order of magnitude?
I think Mr. Yunus could probably give you a number on the per square foot cost.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, he's going to.
To the chair, about 1.6 or 7 million.
Okay, so if we want more space, the old building it's better to keep that old building rather than add to this building.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, we'll go to Councillor Galanders. Just a minute. There we go.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I agree on the field house as well. I was curious if that was going to be demolished before the new building was built, because I think, are the Scouts not using that field house still?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, no, it will not be demolished before we build the new building. It's planned to be after.
Okay, yeah, and I would be supportive of keeping that. I was surprised to read that in the report that it had washrooms in it. I had no idea. There's been washrooms there the whole time. They just weren't functional?
Through the chair, that is correct. They're now being used for storage.
Okay. So upstairs on GP 30, there's something called a servery. Is that a kitchen by any chance?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, it's a food prep space to support the multipurpose spaces.
Is there a reason why we're not putting in a little kitchen? Just be like upstairs at the Stevenson Community Center, for example, there's a full kitchen in that room, and it's just so versatile. If you want to host any sort of event or do anything, you can cook and prepare food. Is it going to be sort of like that, or?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, at this point, the discussions with the committee, building committee, and the program uses discussed don't warrant a full kitchen. It would be suited to have a servery.
Okay. And then I also agree with the comments about the wall versus a removable wall. When you say the committee decided to have a permanent wall because then you can fully utilize the space, so that means all 4 walls could be used for cupboard cabinets or storage or whatever it is. Did the committee already have an idea in mind what kind of usage that would be, or like, do we know which groups would be using those walls, or is it just an idea that it would be used?
Through the chair, Councillor Galanders, the committee discussed both a dividable wall and a permanent wall, and at the end of the day, one large space, the usability of that isn't quite the same as having 2 spaces. Both the West Richmond Association and sport user groups felt that the flexibility, adaptability of 2 separate spaces, they'd be able to program them with seniors wellness programs like yoga or reading books, as well as having parent and top programs, or those spaces could be used by sports groups for coaching clinics, etc. So the flexibility and adaptability definitely improved with a permanent wall. 2 uses at the same time could occur.
If I may, Mayor, to the committee. Oh, thank you. Part of it is around cohabitation and 2 programs happening at the same time. We can absolutely go back and review a movable wall with the program. What you find is that the 2 programs tend to clash with each other, and you can't replicate a permanent wall for noise transference. So for example, if you have yoga going on one side, it's very difficult to have much of anything going on the other side, whereas you can have 2 programs going concurrently with a stronger, more sound barrier wall. So that's why the program group recommended 2 separate walls. They did consider it, but we can go back to them again.
Following up, yeah, no, I do understand that. It's definitely, you lose something either way. There's a lot of, sometimes people want to put on a dance performance. It'd be nice to be able to have a large enough performance space. I don't know if this large multipurpose room is big enough for that. I don't know if it would make sense to have it be a partition wall that's removable. I think that gives us more flexibility and then see which groups end up using it on a regular basis and then look at putting up a permanent wall down the road if it's necessary. But I know that just kind of adds expense and an issue. I'm kind of torn on that, so. And on GP 29, so well, no, it's not actually on that page, but just regarding the site plan, regarding the location options, I was curious, how serious of an issue is this mentioned on GP 25, I should say, that is close to the existing telecommunication monopole? If you put it in the cons, that means that you were anticipating it might be an issue.
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, we did look at all the utilities and the existence of the monopole, and we have confirmed that it will not impact the function or the program of it, but we had to look at it because of the proximity and the size.
But it's still a con, so.
It is close in the proximity of kind of in the viewing area, but it does not impact the construction.
Okay, just one last comment, Your Worship. I can see why that location would be the preferred location, looking at it as a, you'd have all these sight lines of the fields, and it's more like in the middle and usable by both sides. So I can see why that would be chosen, but at the same time, having that hill for people to watch viewing outside, that's what happens, is people want to watch soccer outside and things outside when it's sunny, and the siblings all play along there under the trees, and you've got the shade of trees, which is an amazing thing to have when you're watching sports. And so I think by saying, well, now you could go in the building and watch from the viewing deck, you're kind of taking away something that's really special. I think I wouldn't really be in favor of doing it where the gravel lot is either, because people even just having the idea that they're going to lose any parking might not go over very well. So I think that site B is it's just a little more out of the way. I think it makes more sense. And we don't lose that hill on that viewing area outdoors. I would be more favorable to site B.
Okay, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for this plan. I know my kid played soccer and a lot of other people's kids played soccer, and this is definitely a need in the community. I'm wondering if before this comes to council, we can get a floor plan for the community center, because I think while the concept of, should we have 1 room, 2 rooms, should it have a splitter, not have a splitter, I think the community groups have spoken and they said, this is what's going to work better. I know when you split them, you get better noise attenuation. There's more options for more plugs and that kind of thing. So if you're running tournaments and that kind of stuff, you have more access to plugging things in because you don't have this wall that's moving and doesn't have any of those plugs and things like that. It'll be interesting to then be able to see it against the community center as a whole, because I don't know about the rest of you guys. I don't go to West Richmond very often. I have held birthday parties at South Arm and Thompson, and I have not gotten married at any of the community centers. But realistically, if you were going to get married at the community center, would you get married in the field house or would you get married at the community center or at the Legacy Lounge in the Oval? Like, would you pick a different place if you were to get married in a city facility? And if we're thinking we're trying to run weddings here, it's like, is that really where we want to go with this versus something more with the bowling place because it's right across from the Minaroo Chapel, right? Like, let's not try and make it too many things. We have a huge population that plays soccer. So making it appropriate for the people that play soccer really has a huge amount of value to it. It's the most played sport in Richmond. It's got the most age diversity, gender, like boys, girls, everybody plays soccer. There's Nations Cup coming up. We're going to see all kinds of diversity there playing soccer. So we see that there's plenty of people playing soccer. So we don't have to make it do weddings and funerals and everything else as well. Like, we can keep it fairly narrow and it can still be used a lot. And I think the key is to make sure that it's used properly. I think sometimes we get carried away trying to make it all things to everybody and it's nothing to anybody. And I think the soccer community has wanted this for a long time. There's a lot of people really invested in this and have spent a long time working on this together with staff, trying to get to somewhere. And so I'd be interested if they wanted to actually have a movable wall or not. I think to make one that works for noise attenuation is a lot more expensive than the basic one. And I think we did something similar at the cultural centers. We put in a solid wall because there was that noise attenuation problem. And you couldn't have two groups doing two different things with music or yoga or whatever. You can't do two different things happening because it bothers the other group. And so if we want to maximize the space, I think probably putting up a wall is the way to go. I like the location of it, where it is. The one thing about the hill is we've all been blinded by the light as the sun starts going down towards the end of the day, and so you move around and adjust yourselves accordingly. If you build the whole building that way so that you're constantly blinded, it's probably not your best choice. Whereas if you can look south, now you can see, and then you still have the, I guess, patio or something that's looking over into the other fields as well, right?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll go to Councillor Day online, and then I want to get to the question. Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So I think that Councillor McNulty must have read my mind, because I had exactly the same thoughts. You know, it's almost 1,000 square feet, the old field house, and it seems illogical to spend $120,000 tearing it down when you could renovate it to really high standard for $350,000. My question to staff is, if we offered the old building to a user group, and we're going to pay $120,000 to get it out of there anyhow, what if they paid the difference and we let the user group pay for the upgrades?
I think that's one thing that we can have examined in due course.
Yeah, I do believe we should refer it back, because, and I look at it and look at the senior center, Minera Senior Center. I mean, it was renovated and it's an amazing space, and we desperately needed that space. And I also have heard loud and clear that adult daycare is desperately needed. And I think that this is a great location for it. Now, I have been to West Richmond Community Center in one of the meetings downstairs, and there was a very loud group right next door on the other side of a finished wall, and we could hear all the music and jumping up and down and yelling. So you're going to hear it anyhow. So I think that having a movable wall makes more logical sense, because if you look down at City Hall, we have the cafeteria, and then we have that movable wall. We have used that space countless times, and it makes the space more usable for more groups. Now, Councillor Liu pointed out there should be 4 soccer groups, and I agree, they're going to be there on evenings and weekends, but they're not going to be there Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So it's quite possible that a flexible space would be used a great deal by the West Richmond Community Center. I did have one question of staff. Like currently, it's about 970 square feet that, according to the report, is used mostly for storage, whereas the new building is going to have a plan for 800 square feet for storage. Why would we reduce the amount of storage from the old building to the new building?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, actually, there was an inventory of the existing storage that was undertaken, and there's quite a bit of items in there that could be purged. So the proposed square footage of storage in the new building will meet the needs.
Okay.
Okay, we're absolutely, okay, thank you very much. I'll be supporting the amendment if Councillor McNulty decides to make it.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Hobbs. You've got a question?
No, I don't have a question. I was just going to make a comment, but.
Okay, well, okay, my suggestion, I think we should get to the point here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
My suggestion is, first of all, what we should do is consider number 1, which is approving the location, or not approving, the location, the 2-story form, and the concept design, and adding to that, I guess that would be 1A, and then 1B would be for staff to consider the cost and the utility of a movable wall in that multi-use space. Okay, so if we can decide on that, let's deal with that, and then we'll get to the use of the existing small field house, and then get to the budget and 5-year capital plan, okay? Someone want to move that? Is it seconded? Moved and seconded. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. My thoughts go back and my involvement goes back a long ways before, and I'll support what's on the floor long before everybody came along with the field house with Jim Lamont and Roger Barnes. I'll support the fact that we look at the second floor multi-purpose rooms to be in one room. I also would like to add in there, have staff look at replacing the servery with a kitchen, because I think we need to be looking to the future. We need to be looking long-term. You know, everybody around the table is calling it a field house. And I don't know why we're using the word community building. This is a community building, and the second floor is for the community. The bottom floor is for the soccer, and the overhang is for the soccer. So let's not forget the community, Your Worship. We're spending $19 million on this building, and it's been a long time in coming, but also it was to be attachments on the outside. So the concept that's come is quite a bit different. So I think we need to look to the future with a community building, and then let soccer have the bottom floor as they're laid out.
We got a long agenda here.
That's okay.
And we
This
have
is an
heard a lot of
important
this
one.
before. So we'll add to that B, and so it's cost and utility of the movable wall in the multi-use space and replacing the servery with a kitchen, okay? So that's moved and that's seconded. Councillor Hobbs, did you have a question on that?
No, I'll support that. Sorry.
Okay, okey-doke. I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that is carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. Now, the second issue is the existing small field house, and I'll just go from the comments that we've heard, and it's been suggested that we would have that referred back to staff to again, look at the usefulness, or sorry, the use and the cost effectiveness of keeping the existing building, the existing small field house. Yeah, the potential. So that's moved and seconded. Okay, I've got some comments on that. Councillor McNulty, did you have something more?
Yeah, I think, Your Worship, when we look at the difference, if it's going to cost $120,000 to knock it down, we're throwing that away. And if it costs $300 to, we can find that, try to find the difference down the road, if indeed it's usable. And I'd like the words that we do not demolish the current field house at this time. But
Well,
anyhow.
Yes, everything is at this time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, please, we've heard the general comments, so if it's something new, please let us know. Councillor Heed.
Yes, I'd rather not refer it back to staff. I'd rather make a decision here that we retain that building. And they've given us an estimation already at $350,000. So certainly I don't want it referred back to staff.
My reason for suggesting a referral back to staff is because I think it needs to be far more closely looked at to say exactly what can we do with it, so council can approve that use if that is their desire. And on your theme of cost, we really need to know that it is $350 versus $120, or is it going to be more, and is there going to be more maintenance costs to it? So I think that's why I've suggested the referral. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. That's what I was going to mention, is if we could understand what the OBI is on that, the maintenance costs, because as we know, some of the older buildings are more expensive to maintain. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've proven it with the senior center that we can do it, but not everyone is a candidate for that kind of refurbishment. I've got Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Day, and John Irving. We'll go to John Irving first. You've got a comment, and then we'll go to Councillors Hobbs and Day.
Thank you. Just, Mr. Chair, just a comment on the referrals. With the referral on keeping the field house and certainly adding a full kitchen has a significant cost impact. So we wouldn't want to seek approval of the budget at this stage with those referrals. We would come back to you with options and details on the exact cost impact, again, so that there's common, clear understanding of exactly what we're going to bill. But with those two elements added, that would have an impact on the overall budget.
Well, just a minute. We know what's been added into the budget for the demolition of the field house, and that's 120,000. So we can take that out. And then when it comes back, staff will tell us about the utility, the cost effectiveness, what we can do with it, the OBI, et cetera, and what the budget for that is going to be. We're adding to scope at that point. Secondly, same with the movable wall. If we want the movable wall, we'll just treat it as an addition to scope, and what's the cost of that, and what's the utility, and how does it all work? So I think that we can move forward just with the one adjustment for now, understanding there would be more adjustments if we want to approve something in the future. I'll go to Councillor Hobbs.
Your Worship, I don't think I had my hand up, so I'm good.
Okay. Councillor Day.
Yep. Thank you very much. I agree with everything you just said, Mayor Brody. As staff pointed out earlier, it's going to cost $1.6 million to add that 970 square feet to the new building, whereas it's only $350,000 to renovate it. And I agree that if we just remove $120K from the budget and just leave the field house as is for now, staff can come back with options. And it's entirely possible that they'll find a user group that's willing to spend the money to create something like an adult daycare. So I will be supporting the referral.
Okay. Okay, let's call the question then on the referral. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, so that is carried. Now, that gets us to the budget. Given that, I know it's a budget of 19 million, it's 120,000. Do you want to take that out or just leave it there for the time being? I'm indifferent on that. Okay, let's suggest we approve this the way it's written. 19 million with the, well, it is a capital budget.
Because it could change.
The point being made is that it could change. Hopefully we'll keep to it, but it's 120,000 one way or the other out of 19 million is probably a small amount, even though it's on its face a big amount. Okay, so that it's moved and seconded the way it's written, 19 million with the two funding sources. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And then the consolidated 5-year plan be amended accordingly. Moved and seconded. Discussion on that. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, I think that does it for that. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the John Irving's report, or the report under John Irving's name, the capital projects delivery performance. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to take the opportunity to provide a few brief additional comments to the report. This is something we've been working on for some time, understanding that obviously there's a very high level of financial transparency and accountability through our normal reporting processes, the annual audit, the quarterly capital and operating budget reports, and all of the work that goes into that. So we just wanted to provide a slightly different and kind of maybe a larger overview lens on the performance of the overall capital program. So, and as you can see, we've tried to focus on projects over the last 10 years that have been 100% completed and are in service, so that there's no remaining uncertainty as to, anything related to an unfinished part of that project. Having said that, obviously the context of the conversation is very alive to the fact we do have major ongoing projects. Two of those, most significantly, the Stevenson Community Center and Branch Library and the Works Yard. Those are the two largest projects we have going right now. So very broadly, there is extensive oversight on these projects. The quantity surveyors, the architects, the engineers, the construction management teams that we have hired by our broad, extensive internal project management team are applied to all of these projects of this scale and smaller ones too. Similar process happening with Hugh Boyd, as we've just discussed. Specifically with Stevenson Community Center, that project has advanced at this point to basically the final construction stage. We are 100% complete on the design. We're 100% awarded for construction work. So there's no uncertainty left with regards to the costing from the marketplace on that. And we are on budget and on schedule with that project. The work remaining to be done for the project management team is actually the small part relative to the years of work in advance of getting to this point. But it's largely now going forward a process of monitoring the construction and improving the payment draws to the contractor. On the Stevenson Community Center and Branch Library project, we have no less than 16 independent professional consulting firms involved. And as I mentioned previously, that's the architectural team, the engineering consultants, structural, mechanical, geotechnical, et cetera, quantity surveyors, estimators. 12 of those are the core design and delivery team, and 4 of those professional consulting firms are in a 100% oversight and peer review role. So the extent of that expertise that we draw on from the private sector is quite high, and of course that overlays on all of our internal processes as well. Just quickly on the Works Yard project, obviously that's in an earlier state of design, but the exact same process will be followed there. In addition, I would mention that on the Works Yard project, as we're discovering obviously through the consultation process with the user group, we're doing all of that right now in order to bring to council recommendations on the program for the first phase in the fall. This project uniquely will be under the eyes and ears of the over 400 exempt and union staff that we have showing up for work every day at the Works Yard. And pretty much all of those staff have some level of expertise or competency in the area of construction. So uniquely, really, to any project we've ever done, in addition to having all of our internal processes, including multiple reports to council, approvals of budgets, etc., you've got an incredibly large group of staff that are on a very daily basis going to have oversight of this project. And I'm sure we'll be able to highlight a few things for us, not just in the advanced preliminary programming and design phase, but as we move through construction as well. So we're in a very good spot there. Just one last comment as well, just something we didn't highlight in the report, but for any significant new construction project or renovation project, we use a service called Multivista. So with projects like Minnetonka Center for Active Living, for the Lawn Bowling Center, certainly for Stevenson Community Center and the Works Yard, this company comes in and sets up cameras over the entire construction site and creates a permanent record, of photographic record taken every 15 minutes of the entire construction process. So we have a permanent record of exactly what was built before it gets covered up. And it's incredibly powerful and useful, both for everybody involved to know that's happening, and to go back in the record when we have to look at something that maybe has to be adjusted or there's any kind of dispute. And certainly that process was instrumental in helping us land in an excellent place when we had the unfortunate incident of the pool failure in Minnetonka Center for Active Living. That situation there, because of the processes we have in place and because of the use of tools like Multivista, that resulted in 0 additional costs to the city. That failure of the pool was 100% covered by the construction's company's insurers. So very robust process, and the results are evident in the report. We complete pretty much 100% of our projects on budget and on schedule. So with that, happy to take any questions.
All right, well, stay online then, if you could. Councillor Heed.
Yes, I'm not going to debate with Mr. Irving with respect to this, but I'm going to take exception to this report coming forward in the fashion that it did. It came forward as a result of me submitting a motion with respect to a blue ribbon committee, and we'll talk about that later in the agenda. I just want to start out asking Mr. Irving 2 questions, and then I'll get into some of his report. What is the estimated cost now of the Stevenson Community Center, and what was it originally anticipated to be?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I'll refer to Mr. Yunus to have those exact numbers. But as detailed in the report, again, we have an approved capital budget, council approved capital budget. When we come to council for approval of that budget, just as we've done with Hugh Boyd, that's the point at which we have a defined program and a defined scope. And we've projected those numbers into the future for the construction phase, and that could be easily 5 years or more. So we've escalated those costs, understanding and estimating what cost inflation is going to be and cost escalation for various elements of the construction. And we've added factors of safety to that as well. So when we reach that stage, we're saying, yes, we will deliver this project for that amount. And that's what you're seeing in the results in the report here. Cost estimates that we provide ahead of that. So in some cases, there's cost estimates that might be a couple of years or even 5 or 10 years ahead of the actual capital budget approval point. Those estimates reflect, again, potentially different scopes of work. Certainly with the Stevenson Community Center, I think previous estimates we had, Mr. Yunus can confirm, reflected a smaller building on different sites. We added additional square footage. What typically happens, as you're seeing with the Hugh Boyd process, we don't want to start large. We want to, as staff, bring forward an estimate of what we think the facility needs to be based on council's approved strategic goals. And then through the process, that's really the natural, as you engage more stakeholders in a broader swath of the community, typically new needs get identified, and the project just generally gets larger in scope or in definition. And that's what you're largely seeing with the different numbers over the years before you get to an approved capital budget. And then in addition, of course, is that cost escalation. So if you have an estimate for a project that was provided 3, 4, 5 years before the approved capital budget, then you're looking at, maybe upwards of 20 or 30% cost escalation. That will be the difference in those numbers. We don't escalate the previous numbers with the ill-defined scope, because at the time you're considering that, it's typically in the context of that annual budget or other projects. So as we did with the major facilities process, we had phase 1, phase 2 now approved by council. When we're going through that process, we're trying to compare different buildings and make it as comparable as possible to say, okay, do you want a new pool or do you want a new community center? What are the priorities? And in that case, you're just trying to identify pure building costs in a comparative mode. And you're not getting specific about the site. You're not getting specific about other costs that might relate to that project when you really have finally landed on a site and then landed on a specific program. So just don't want to take too long, but just provide that broader context. Certainly Mr. Yunus could give you the exact numbers on Stevenson Community Center.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, in 2016 dollars, when we submitted the phase 1 in 2016 dollars, it was 40 to 50 million. That was in 2016 dollars, and it was high level concept. When we did the programming, the size of the building increased and the site location also changed. Hence the cost escalation with the new program and the enhanced or larger building brought it up to 90 million plus 5 million contingency.
So right now it's at 90 million.
The project budget is 90 million plus $5 million contingency.
95.
Yeah.
So it's double what we originally, the concept was for the community center library.
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, that is correct, but I need to mention that the scope has also changed.
That's fine. The material change, I understand that. I wish we didn't go through material change, but I certainly understand that. Completion, are you estimating that the cost will go up before completion?
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, we have already awarded the project and it will not go up, no.
It will not?
No.
Okay. Works yard
Through the
project?
chair, I would just add to that as well, through you to Councillor Heath. Yeah, that original cost estimate from 2016, I mean, again, that is not escalated to the current construction window. So we're spending the majority of dollars. Mr. Yunus could correct me, but I believe we're under 20% expended at this point on the Stevenson Community Center. So the majority of construction, we have a firm price from the contractor that we have awarded. So there's a high level of certainty there, and that's on budget. But these are dollars now reflecting actual construction that's occurring this year, in 2025, and in 2026. So that's a full 10 years past the date that that original cost estimate was provided. So, you know, to be fair, a $40 or $50 million estimate in 2016, you would want to escalate that to current construction costs, and I believe we have a table in the report. So, you know, for instance, I look at Minaroo Center for Active Living, which is a much more complex building when you're building pools. That was a fantastic result that we got that facility delivered for the 90 million odd budget that we had on that. If you had to build that exact same facility today, I can guarantee you it would be in excess of 200 million, perhaps more. That's just where the construction costs have gone. And again, when we're providing preliminary numbers just for council to consider prioritization and where we want to expend further dollars on defining program, we always provide those in the dollars of the day because we don't know at that point when you're going to actually want to construct it. And with something like Stevenson Community Center, again, we're estimating that project cost, as in this case, it turns out 10 years prior to the actual construction.
And the works yard?
Similarly, yes. I mean, you know,
I'm asking for numbers. I'm not asking for an explanation. I'll get into further explanation when we talk about procurement in a minute. I just want the numbers for the works yard. You know, what it is estimated at and what the projected cost may be.
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, we have projected that 247.5 million from a 7 to 10 years. But we are now verifying program and we will come to council at every interval.
247 million at this point.
That is correct.
And it's a multi-year project.
That is correct.
Correct. Okay, if I could just go to GP 33, you talk about 557 capital projects that have been approved by the City Council since 2014, completed with a project account. 100% of these projects are being completed on or under budget. And then the next paragraph you go, of the 557 completed, there were 8 projects that required additional budget and those additional budgets were approved. So are we 100% or are we 92%?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes, we're 100%. So those 8 projects that we had to come back to council on, we did that prior to any dollars or any contract awards being committed. So that was at a point of zero risk. It's not a situation where certainly you're seeing, you know, other projects nationally, provincially, or what have you, run into trouble. You know, Site C Dam is a good example, where they pulled the trigger on construction and were well underway and had thousands of workers mobilized and then had to do a major revision of the design. That's something we've never done. So where are you seeing those 8 projects? That's a situation where we've advanced some design or got some quantity surveying done or had cost estimates come in on an actual procurement and said, stop. The costs are coming in higher. We bring it back to council. We say, this is where the marketplace has decided that this cost is in spite of our best efforts. Do you want to proceed or do you want to pursue other options? And so mostly in those cases, council has chosen to proceed with projects. In some cases, we've revised some scope or some square footage. But at no point were actual dollars committed or spent prior to that approval. So that's the clarification. In that case, once we've got council approval prior to construction start on a project, yes, we're 100% on budget.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to talk about the managing change risk. And you talk about the fact that we want to foster community trust, being as open and transparent and as accountable as possible. So when we talk about procurement, and maybe this is a general problem we have in the crisis in confidence, in some of the examples provincially and within Metro Vancouver, when we talk about the procurement, do you utilize actuaries, futurists? Do you do potential problem analysis, and even with the new AI to determine what the price is going to be, what the project costs are going to be going forward? Or do we just go with, for example, 2024? This is how much it would cost to build the new community facility at Hugh Boyd Park. But meanwhile, we know the shovel's not going to go in the ground tomorrow morning, and we know that whether, the justification for costs, construction industry, skilled labor shortage, and those things, do we not take that into account? Can we not, in our procurement, look at, this is the cost now, this may be the cost once we get the shovels in the ground, and this may be the cost at the end of the day, to give the public an idea of what their taxpayers or tax dollars are being used for? Because, and I'm not faulting you, definitely not, when we talk about, it was great to have a new Stevenson Community Center library. Guess what? It was 40 to 50 million. Now we're up to 95, close to 100 million. Can we not, in the procurement process, come up with some type of data to project in the future what the costs may likely be?
Through the chair to Councillor Heat, yes, that's exactly what we do.
Yes.
And
The
it's
costs are
exhaustive.
determined through the procurement process.
Well, then how do we get, to
You
90
have a
million?
high level budget. Back in 2016, they said, it'd be nice to have a new community center, and what's the order of magnitude? $40 to $50 million. Then we get serious about it. We consult with all these people. We consult with all the experts, and then we go out and we get contracts, and the contracts say X dollars, and we approve the budget. Or if we find we need more, we approve more, or we cut back on the scope.
So I understand that. I absolutely understand that. Can we not predict it if that's what happens every time? If that's a standard operating procedure on all projects we have, can we not predict it?
What are you saying, that the high level of estimate should be higher?
Well, it is higher though.
But it's not apples to apples.
It should be apples to apples, because in 2024, the price we're giving right now, by the time it's built, it's going to be X amount. We can use some, use artificial intelligence. You can start to predict what it's going to be. It gives us more accountability on how we spend the taxpayer dollar.
We are only spending it when we put out the contract. That's what we do. That's what we did in Stevenson. That's what we did in the lawn bowling. When we found out that the lawn bowling was $2 million over, brought it back to council. The staff said, do you still want to go for this? The answer was, yes, we still want to go for this. We're going to cut down the scope, and we'll stick with the budget. So, you can float any number you want, but where it counts is where you're spending those dollars. And that's where you have all kinds of experts, including staff and others, who are giving their opinion that that is the reasonable price to be paying for that. That's when it counts. If I say 10 years from now, we're going to build a work yard or something, $247 million, it's not going to be $247 million, I guarantee it.
So be frank with the taxpayer out there. 2016, we said Stevenson Community Center was 45 million. Yes, there was material change and all of that, and that's fine. It's now double. It's now double.
Yeah, and it's considerably more of a project than it was back then. Secondly, we've gone through the cost escalations of the last 3 or 4 years. If you go to any city in this region, I guarantee the politicians and the staff will talk about the huge cost escalations that we faced. So what we've done, our process is to examine it, frankly, to death, go out and get contracts, approve that as a contract, X dollars. And that's what we've done.
Well, let's see if we hold States and Community Center to 90 million. So in actual fact, 95. In actual fact, the works yard could be at least $500 million. Pardon me?
In any case, the work yard, we're going to hear more about the work yard. It sounds like we've got a report coming in the fall. That is a very long-term project. That's going to engage council and staff with a lot of different concepts of what we want, how to make efficiencies over time, how to make it more environmentally friendly. And then we have to face the daunting prospect of going through a number of years of a project while it's being used as an existing work yard, which is going to add to the difficulty and the expense, I would think.
And the point I want to make, and yes, I'm raising my voice simply because I'm passionate about this, passionate about ensuring that we're using public dollars in the best way possible and that we're showing the public that we're transparent in everything we do. I'm not going to say it in a calm voice because I'm not in a calm voice right now. This is certainly an issue that all of us should be very cognizant of when we're dealing with publicly funded dollars. So I'll just, again, end my questions. There's a lot more to come, and I think that we need to do more of a due diligence on our expenditures here. And as you'll know, and there's a motion coming forward to make sure that publicly funded projects, these significant ones, the two, that we have proper oversight in place. Thank you.
Councillor Liu. No, Councillor Glanders.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, John, for answering the questions. I'm just curious. So when we put out to tender for a project, how many general contractors tend to bid? Like, how many bids do we get? How many?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, that certainly varies depending on the type of project, the size of project, and the time. And, certainly going through COVID, we have had instances where certain projects, usually smaller ones, receive no bids. We have, more recently, the responses have been quite good. We just got a very good response and a number of very competitive bids on the next phase of the Steveston multi-use pathway, and certainly on the Steveston Community Center and the Works Yard project phase 1. We had very substantive interest from the construction sector and excellent competitive bids on both those projects. In large part, because the industry largely recognizes us as a very good client, because we do all of this process. We have very well-defined projects. When they start bidding on them, they see that there has been an exhaustive process to define the project, and there's minimal risk to them of a situation where they're told to revise the scope or anything like that in the middle of construction. Certainly, that's very worrisome to an architectural consultant or a contractor who's trying to minimize their risk. And what you see actually, when you're an agency or a client that's trying to procure construction services and you've got a history of changing direction and being uncertain on what you're doing, those contractors and consultants respond with higher prices for you to factor in that risk to themselves. So certainly more recently with those large projects and with a lot of our projects right now, we're getting very good response from the construction and consulting industry.
Following up, yeah, that makes sense because, between 2015 and 2022, 23, everybody was working and building just a ton of housing, and you wouldn't have had as many bids because everybody was too busy to take on any more work. And right now, everybody's looking for work, so it makes sense that you're getting more interest. But on that same line about who would be accountable, who is responsible for things that go wrong. So I'm not taking away from, you know, that you came in, that we've come in on budget and haven't gone over, but that makes sense because once you've issued a contract to a general contractor, it's their responsibility. You're not going to pay them any more than the contract. So of course they're going to come in at 100%. But that being said, when something comes up that was unforeseen, like site conditions or some issue with, we look at Minoru, I don't even want to use that example, but something came up that was unforeseen, and you had to do a substantial change order to the contract. Who's responsible for that? It would be the contractor. If the contractor, the general contractor had to get us, the subcontractor, to do more work, change a contract, do they have to pay for it, or would we have to pay for it?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, I mean, it depends on the change. So if it's a client-directed change where we're simply saying, okay, build another 1,000 square feet on a project,
yeah,
we would pay for that.
Yeah.
If we're simply going to them and feel that there's been a deficiency in workmanship or something that they're responsible for, then we would seek to have them pay for it. And certainly, you know, when we get to the point of going through the procurement process and awarding a contract, once we've done that and we're confident in the contractor we're awarding to, that certainly eliminates a lot of risk or uncertainty you might have, but it certainly doesn't deliver at all or eliminate all of that risk. And there still is a lot of project management and oversight required to make sure the consultant, the contractor, is delivering exactly what they've been contracted to deliver. You can certainly find a lot of examples where there just hasn't been the project oversight. And in those situations, it becomes quite easy to get overcharged in spite of what any contract you have. And that speaks to the part of the report where, you know, the robust internal project management delivery model that we have really helps us protect us from that risk. We put a lot of effort into managing the contracts that we have and make sure that whoever we've contracted with delivers what they said they're going to deliver on for the price that they guaranteed us.
Just a couple more questions, Your Worship. The QS surveyor, the quantity surveyor, and the review consultant, are they hired just at the beginning? It's just like a vendor and you just hire them to oversee it, or they have a contract to work throughout the whole project?
Through the chair to Councillor Gallagher, it could be both. And certainly quantity surveyors we use at the very beginning of the process when you're having those cost estimates come to you. You know, like for Stevenson Community Center 10 years ago, or back in 2016, we use quantity surveys at that stage. I mean, we don't have great definition on the scope, and we don't know exactly when the project's going to be built. So again, that's why we quote those numbers in dollars of the day. But we use quantity surveyors at that process, and then all the way through until we're actually awarding a contract. So ultimately, the quantity surveyor and the estimators are trying to predict for you what the market's going to tell you when you actually go to build and get the response through your procurement process. So when you actually get that, and with Stevenson Community Center, Scott Construction's our contractor, they have all the prices from the subs. We've approved those, so they're off and running to full completion of that project with an approved budget. At that point, the quantity surveyor's not of any use because the market has told you what the price is. So they can improve upon that. But.
Okay, and my last question and comment then is, I mean, yeah, so around 2011, the contact foot price for just concrete alone was around $6 to $7 per contact foot, and then up to and in 2018 it was up to like $18 a contact foot. So 3 times as much for just concrete. So I can see why it would have been difficult to predict some of these wells, but I can see. But I think it's kind of settled off now a little bit. Like at least in concrete, it's pretty stable. So I can see the concern with saying, you know, like do we have an interest in building a new whatever? It's probably going to cost $50 million. So then you move forward with looking into it. And then once it comes to the table with the actual budget, it's a lot harder to walk it back or say we didn't want that, because we've already, had the idea that it was going to be a certain amount. So I could see, even though it's not the budget, like I understand what you're saying, but it would be helpful to get a range, like, to have some 10-year projections. It could be anywhere from 50 to 90 based on what happened in the last 10 years, right? I can see that would be very valuable to the taxpayers.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly if that is something council wants us to do, that's easy for us to do. And it is a matter of uncertainty, but we can certainly project in the future, but just simply based on an assumption of what those projections are going to be. As you go out further in time, obviously the uncertainty grows. But we could identify, if that's something council wants to see, as we bring forward projects at the planning and strategic stage, we can certainly do that if it's felt that's of use.
Right.
Again, we haven't done that for simply the reasons that when you're actually looking at those numbers, it's very difficult to compare them when you're considering budgets in that given year. So you want to kind of compare apples to apples. But again, certainly when we get to the point, like with Hugh Boyd, where we're providing you a recommended budget to approve specifically. So that's the point at which council says, yes, staff, go ahead and deliver it for this dollar amount. And then that kicks in all of our processes where we approve those up to myself or the CAO for given contract awards within that approved budget. Those budgets have been projected in the future. So the budget you're seeing for Hugh Boyd has now been projected. We're saying, okay, council, if you approve that today, we know we're going to build this over the next 4 or 5 years. And we'll look at all the cost escalation that the quantity surveyors are providing us and the estimators, and we add in our factor of safety, and we say, yes, we will deliver it for you. And that's what you're seeing again in the results from the projects of the past 10 years.
Okay, we've got Councillor Wolf, Councillor Day, Councillor Hobbs.
Oh, geez.
I'm asking you, please, to be brief in your question and be brief in your reply. Councillor Wolf.
On page 36, it says concrete alone is set to increase by approximately 5% over the next 6 months. Do we have similar anticipated increases for a whole bunch of other things, like other copper, steel, HVAC materials, et cetera?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes. We have a lot of detail on all the specific material and labor streams that factor into our costs.
And roughly for the next 6 months, we have like that far of a horizon?
Yes, we have. I mean, we have horizons that go out quite considerably in time. So there's projections that go out a number of years. Of course, as you go out further in time, the uncertainty just increases, but we certainly project all of that.
Terrific, thanks. On our page 39, 2 different places it says that there's a minimum of 3 bids required for subcontractors. Is that like a hard limit, or do we make exemptions where if only 2 bid, then okay, we accept the 2 bids, or 1?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, we will look at exceptions. Of course, that's a target. Again, sometimes you get a situation where maybe it's a very specific service that's being required, and in some cases, there's only maybe 1 provider of that service. So it's rare. But then we would look at those very specific conditions and make sure that there is a very explicit rationale for not seeing those 3 bids. Vast majority of the work we do dollar-wise is very broadly supported in the industry. So yes, most of the time we do see those 3 bids and we result with a very good competitive price for the city.
Thank you. That leads me to a next question about, you mentioned the rare or never type or category of projects that we do. And I was thinking more of like the geothermal and the sewer heat recovery for Lulu Island Energy. What extra levels of oversight do we do for those types of projects that are extremely rare in the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, certainly that they're not necessarily, certainly geothermal, there's a well-established industry in the region now for that, but certainly yes, our sewage heat recovery plant is more unique. It has been done in the region, but certainly not as frequently as a lot of other things. And that explicitly is the fundamental reason that we've gone into partnership with Corix Utilities. They are the specialists in that whole area. So the entire model we've set up for delivering district energy from the creation of the Lulu Island Energy Company and providing that larger concession agreement to Corex is explicitly because of that reason. We wanted to recognize, hey, we are not the detailed specialists in delivering that type of work. We need to bring a partner on board that is. And within that, having done that, yes, all those other processes we discussed happen on top of that as well.
Thank you. My last question is, I'm just trying to see how this factors in. So and it didn't show up in the end of the report, all the list of the major projects, but the Richmond Ice Center was a major project for the city, finished. And then a memo we got in June, or a few weeks ago, was that the trusses, the ceiling trusses need to be repainted because they were done poorly and all the paint flakes down. And then in that report, in that memo, it says that there's future capital requests coming to do that work. And nowhere in the memo does it mention that the previous budget is going to get opened up, or that work is going to get covered by who was supposed to do it in the first place. So I'm just curious because you didn't use the term 100% under budget or within the budget. How does something like that factor in?
Through the chair to council, certainly with a facility like that, which is an aging facility, an existing facility, it just will have ongoing maintenance year to year. So we did do an original projection when we purchased that property to support the business case for that purchase and what was the amount we should have purchased it for based on what we understood the broader upgrades and maintenance that were required at the time. But for a building that age, there will just be ongoing maintenance requests, such as painting those roof trusses.
Okay, we're going to go to Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So thank you very much, Tricia Irving. You mentioned that on the Stevenson Community Center, there are 16 consulting firms. Is that cost effective?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the dollars that you spend on these firms, and certainly, you could look at the 4 firms that we have in 100% oversight and peer review role. So there's an architect there, a structural engineer, and they're reviewing the work of our primary architect and structural engineer. Does it cost money? Yes. But when you look at the risk you're managing, to eliminate or significantly reduce the risk of a big problem or a cost overrun in the project, it's absolutely valuable dollars to spend. I mean, as we've seen again in the region, it's possible for these projects, if you're not managing them correctly or identifying some of these risks, you can easily double, triple the cost of the project. And so when you're spending, less than 5% of your project costs on this kind of oversight, absolutely it's value dollars.
Okay, and then is it safe to say that depending on the project, you would have more, or like you would have different consultants? It's not going to be the same 5 guys for every project. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Council Day, absolutely. Again, to the category of, or the project categories we deal with, that's where we really try to stay in our lane, and we understand there is a very broad contracting and consulting community ready to support any project that we're doing of these types. And there's lots of little projects, smaller projects that we're just doing continually, like painting the roof trusses at Richmond Ice Center. So we're constantly getting a feel of, on a smaller scale, what these contractors and consultants can do for us. And that all parlays into larger projects, because these larger projects, again, they're in the same category. Yes, there's larger dollars or you're doing more square footage, but they're of a type that we know what the industry is going to do for us.
Okay, and my last question is to the chair. So we have all these projects that have come in 100% done, completed, on budget. But what we haven't talked about is the delays we've experienced. And I'm thinking about, for instance, the Boyd Fieldhouse, or whatever we're going to call it, has been 9 years in the making. And the lawn bowling was totally stalled in 2022. Britannia Indigenous Building, well, is falling into itself if we don't get going on that. And multi-use pathway for the Bark Park. I mean, good God, we could have made a decision on this last year. And then I look at, the Stevenson Highway and, how much that has come in for the multi-use pathways. So I guess what I want to know is, we do all these consultants, we have all these checks and balances, but it seems to really take a long time to get things done. Have you any thoughts on that?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day, absolutely. And that's very conscious. We always talk about the project triangle. So you have scope, schedule, and budget on the 3 points of the triangle. And, the industry will always say, well, you can control 2 of them, but you can't control 3 of them simultaneously. So you have to be flexible on one. And pretty much universally, we choose to be flexible on schedule. If you want to spend more money, or if you want to reduce scope, then yes, you could probably bring more projects into a schedule. But typically what we're building, if you look at Stevenson Community Center, this is going to be a 100-year facility. And so spending an extra couple of years even to get it done right and get it done on budget so that you don't have to spend extra money that you can now apply to another project like Hugh Boyd is definitely the value proposition, and so it's frustrating, certainly, I think, for a lot of people involved and for the ultimate community that's going to use these facilities to see delays. But when you really look at the big picture, it's so much more important that we actually get the project right and deliver something that is exactly what the community wants versus rushing it and getting it out ahead, maybe spending extra money to do that and delivering a scope that maybe isn't exactly what the community wants.
Okay. We should go to Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Well, thanks for the report. Interesting information. I'll be brief at one question, but the number of projects in the last 10 years and being on or under budget was interesting, and with the 8 that were adjusted. But the one question I'll ask is, when you're planning for the budget, and I mean when it's being finalized, not 10 years before when we're having initial discussions, and that's a fair point about how long things take. But Table 1 was interesting to me on page GP 36. Even when you go back to 2016, 2017, some of the increases in the non-residential construction costs were quite significant, even when inflation was really low. So I take it that you take into account things like GDP, consumer price index, but other factors. To clarify, could you just comment a little bit on what goes in? Because forecasting is important. It's not, complete science, but it's important. So other than those major things, what else goes into forecasting the cost so that when we approve the budget, it's as accurate as it can be?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, yes, we do an awful lot. I mean, and it starts with finance. You see the quarterly and annual reports. They're tracking all the broader national and international economic figures, interest rates, things like that. And then that information is excellent. You want to factor that in. We do. Then you look at the local marketplace. How much are those national or international factors impacting your local marketplace? What's happening with specific elements or materials? Every little piece of the puzzle will have its own inflation rate or supply chain that you have to look at. Certainly with these projects, again, we like staying in our lane and in a category we're very confident we can deliver on. We do value engineering all of these, look at products and say, okay, is this something we can source locally? Or are we dependent on this piece of equipment coming from overseas? On the civil side, we haven't talked about that much, but we've standardized all of our new drainage pump stations with the same type of pump. So we go to one manufacturer in the States. We know before we design the pump station, that's what we're going to need. It's a long lead item. So we order the pumps before we've even started the design of the pump station. So we know they're going to be here. We have them ready to install when we're actually doing the project. So every little component will have its different elements. But yes, we do exhaustive work to make sure we've defined the factors that impact that specific element.
Well, thanks. And I'll just wrap up because it is important to be accountable and transparent when we're spending tax dollars. I think we'd all agree with that. So thanks for that answer.
Okay, thanks. So the recommendation is we receive the report for information. Moved and seconded. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? So that is carried. Thanks to staff. Now we come to Councillor Heed's motion, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to read over the background. Everyone has the background. I'll try not to talk too loud, but opposed to some councillors, I'm concerned about public dollars that are being spent here. Certainly, the objective of a blue ribbon oversight committee is to coincide with what we just heard from Mr. Irving on ensuring that we are utilizing those tax dollars in the most accountable and transparent way. A blue ribbon committee, if you look at the composition of this, and I'll lay the motion out in a minute, I just want to give you some background on this. These are people that have been involved in the industry at the highest level. These are people that built significant infrastructure projects here in British Columbia, whether it's to be a consultant on Site C Dam, whether it's to build the Sea to Sky Highway, GM Place, the SkyTrain lines, all of those individuals. There are people that have, we'd be counting on, that have recently retired, that have so much to contribute to ensuring that the oversight is correct, so they can identify with Mr. Irving on what these projects are. And again, we're talking about projects that are excessive here, and the two largest ones are the Steveston Community Center that we talked at length about, and the Works Yard project, which is anticipated to move us forward and be a very costly item. These are people that, as I mentioned, have more capacity than we could ever imagine. I've talked to several of the people in this particular field that led some of the largest construction companies in British Columbia, some of the largest infrastructure projects in British Columbia that we talked about. Those are the people we would be focusing on to sit on the Blue Ribbon Oversight Committee. It is just they would meet quarterly, depending on the projects that we have. And again, I don't anticipate many projects over $55 million here in the city of Richmond. So the motion I'll put forward has five particular points, Mayor, and
I think we've got them all in the agenda.
yes.
Okay, I don't see any speakers having lined up, so I'll start it off. I'm all for accountability, openness, accuracy, staying within budget, predictability, staying within the plan, all those kinds of things. I think our track record has been good, but it's not impeccable, and we can always improve it. I do point out the fact that there was a Blue Ribbon Committee appointed for the North Shore Wastewater Treatment Plant at Metro Vancouver. And throughout that process, when they've been involved, the budget has gone up by, from $1 billion to $4 billion. So having a Blue Ribbon Committee, from my point of view, is not a panacea. It can be a useful device in certain circumstances. What I think we need to do is to refer this back to staff to give us what the options are in terms of the quality and cost, and the cost controls and the cost effectiveness. And then when we have a major project, besides talking about budget, talking about design, talking about plan, talking about the building footprint and where it's going to be and all that kind of stuff, in addition to that, I think that we should have a specific discussion and advice as to how the costs are going to be controlled. Because I just don't think that you're dealing with a panacea when you are dealing with a Blue Ribbon Committee, however wise those people may be, and it's simply not a panacea. And it just take Steveston Community Center and take the Works Yard. They are very different projects. They would involve very different skills. Probably Steveston would probably be more of a, not commonplace, but conventional project. The Works Yard, though they have been done all over the world, and we can be educated by that, by the track record. I think that it's going to involve very different considerations. So that's my suggestion, is we refer this back, get some options from staff, and let's go through it and talk about cost control, quality control, and how we do it.
If I could just respond to that,
Yeah.
it's not meant to be a panacea, not meant to be. It's meant to be one part of a comprehensive accountability puzzle that we're putting together. This is a very, very low cost, minimal cost to us. We're talking about quarterly meetings, and they're paid whatever the per diem may be, similar to some of the other committees. This is a low cost. This is one where I see a very strong relationship between our staff that's doing the accountability with these particular people, just having a different set of mind on it, set of eyes on it, that could assist. It's not meant to replace what we're already doing.
And my point is that that can have utility in the right circumstances, but not every circumstance. But we do have other speakers. First of all, we'll go to Councillor Liu, and then we've got online, we've got Councillor Hobbs and Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I like the sound of a lot of this. I think that staff already has a lot of pieces in place to oversee costs. I think the process by which we choose to do many of our projects, we can always pull the plug whenever we want. So when the final numbers come to us, and when we hear from the community that the seniors want a separate entrance, or that the Steveston Community Center wants extra space for a bigger kitchen or more multi-purpose, or whatever, we can make those decisions to meet the needs and concerns of the user groups that are going to use them. One of the things that certainly happened with the wastewater treatment plant is that there was a rush on it that was being put on by the feds. There's no rush being put on any of our projects. We can hold them for as long as we want and take our time. And sometimes taking our time doubles the cost of what they're going to be. We can just look at certain projects that are coming before us, because I seem to recall one of them being part of a conversation for one of them 10 years ago, and the numbers were vastly different. But the cost of concrete's gone up, the cost of 2x4s have gone up, the cost of wages have gone up, minimum wage has doubled since then, so costs are going to increase. We can do pro formas all day long and try and figure out how things are going to increase, but it's, at the end of the day, we're still going to see the numbers in front of us. I like the idea of having a process for a selection of who you might select, but I've also seen shenanigans where people totally steamroll the process anyway, and so I'm not sure that that's going to get you where you're saying you're going to take us with this. So anyway, I'll support a referral. I think it's a good idea to look more into it and to better understand what the costs and implications are, or how it's any different from what we're already doing. If we're already hiring specialists who do all these projects, then what's the difference if we go shopping for more specialists? So thank you.
So we'll go to Councillor Hobbs online.
Thank you, and through the chair. Thanks for the motion, first of all, and I will say generally I agree with it. I don't know why anybody wouldn't agree with having more accountability, more transparency, and another kind of safety check on how we spend the taxpayers' dollars. I do have some questions that pop into my mind, though, and I'll go through them all, but why the $50 million mark, versus 60 or 40, for instance? We don't have too many projects, I think, that are over that threshold, so maybe that's why. I'm not clear on whether it's going to be a standing committee. It sounds more like it would be a project-specific committee that would be struck, depending on the projects, because there's not that many, and I think that would be a good idea. I know the CAO would be tasked with certain protocols, so I understand some of that has to be fleshed out still. I'd also like to see built into that a criteria for the evaluation of the committee itself, because I think we should make sure that we're getting bang for the buck from them, and that would take some time because you'd have to have something to work with. I mean, I understand why we're doing it, and why we're looking at it, because we've all seen examples around the province and elsewhere where projects have just got completely out of hand in terms of what they cost versus their budget. We haven't seen that in Richmond, and it's important to point that out to the public. But I still think it's a worthwhile idea to look at. I don't think it's urgent in terms of us passing it today. I think I would support the referral, and staff can come back with additional information. And then I think it's a worthwhile thing to look at. So thanks for bringing it forward, and I'll listen to the rest of the conversation.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Day, then Councillor
you very
Wolf, Councillor Au. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. I had a question for Councillor Heed. I think this is a great idea to have more analysis, the better. But my question is that is it too late for the Steveston Community Project, and is it too early for the Workshard Project?
No, I don't believe so. I think at any time we can bring in the accountability, whether it's the early stage. The earlier we bring it in, the better we're going to be. But I think given the fact there's no cost certainty, and we're hearing about the Steveston Community Center is 95 million. Well, let's hope that's cost certainty for that. But the Workshard project is a very worrisome one. And, I'd like to get, if we move in this direction, to get them involved in the projects early on, working with our staff on that.
Well, of course,
And then
Steveston, we've got the contracts are let, so it's there.
It's fine. They're not going to be involved in deciding what the contract is. I envision this, Mayor, as them being involved, saying to staff, well, you may want to look at this, you may want to look at that. They're not going to give any direction. They're not going to do whatever. And as I said, the CA can determine the reporting process to council.
Okay. Going back to Councillor Day.
thank you so much. We have all kinds of committees, Seniors Advisory Committee, Child Care Committee, and they provide very valuable information back to council, often in a way that we just didn't imagine. So I'm always happy to have extra consultation. Where I'm kind of confused is that we just heard from Mr. Irving that there are 16 consultants just on the Steveston Community Center project. So, and that's a very specific project. It's a community center, whereas it's a whole other ball of wax with the Workshard. And if we had a $50 million diking system, that would be another entirely different set of criteria. So my question to Councillor Heath is it possible, or do you envision that we could potentially have more custom-made committee for a particular project, given that they're ever so different?
We'll go to Councillor Heath, but that is not the motion.
Just to be very quick, the people that I envision that hopefully would be on this particular committee had a variety of infrastructure projects, including buildings that are well known here in Vancouver and British Columbia, and those types of individuals. So, we don't have many. Like I said, it's 50 million and more. We only have 2. Hopefully we won't have many going forward.
Okay.
All right. I would accept referring this back. I think we need to make sure that if we do have a blue ribbon committee, that it's going to be adaptable to the various types of developments. We've only got 2 right now, over 50 million, which I think is plenty, but they are quite different. And I'm concerned that one cookie cutter committee might not be the right option, only because they are just so physically different. So right. Thank you very much, Mayor Brody.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. I don't need a lengthy response or even any response, but when it comes to the referral, I'd like in there staff to review the previous, I don't have the name for it in front of me, but it was a large or major project advisory committee. I was appointed to be the council liaison on it during the last term, but it never met, and then it's not even in our listing or an option for the mayor to put any of us on it because it doesn't exist anymore. I just wonder if that was what we're talking about today, and what was its threshold to be considered a major project. Thanks.
My recollection of that, it was for the MCAL, Center for Active Living. In any case, staff can take that under advisement for sure. Councillor Al.
Yes, Your Worship, I would support the referral motion. I think the idea of setting up a blue ribbon oversight committee is good. Nobody would argue against having better oversight or more transparent process, things like that. But personally, I have some questions about the makeup of this committee. For example, we already have a system that we can hire consultants on case-by-case basis. So, I mean, is it necessary to be a standing committee? And are there other ways to do it if we want to have better oversight of the projects that we have? Is this the only way, or there can be other options? So I want staff to look into that. And secondly, I want to know that what is the nature of this committee? What is its function? Is it just to provide second opinion, or are we asking this committee to do all the work as staff already done? So to do the site, the definition, cost estimate, calculation, and all kinds of things. So are we asking this committee just to provide us a second opinion, or we ask them really to repeat or duplicate what the staff has already done? And at the end, if they have a different opinion on the project or on the numbers, are we going to make the decision, or they have the so-called veto power? And thirdly, I think I also want staff to assess about the makeup and the selection. I know that yes, there are many people qualified, but how can we set the criteria for selection? That can be very controversial. And finally, I want staff also to mention that whether or not this would cause further delays, because we're adding layers and layers and layers of process, And if I look back into some of the examples given in this discussion, I think many times it's not because staff make a mistake or they have an oversight of certain things. It's basically because we as a city council, we change our minds during the process, or we make additional steps. Very often we make referrals again and again. I think the Long Bowling Clubhouse is a good example, and we refer back to staff many times. So I think whether or not this would cause further delays, and those are the questions.
All right, staff can look at those among the options and the consequences. Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the motion. And I support referring it as well, just to get an idea of how it would work regarding selection and the process of finding the people and all of that and everything that everybody else has already mentioned. And if we weren't going to refer it and just vote on it, I would have suggested, that we establish it for a year and see what kind of information we get back, because it was hard to imagine what type of information we'd get back, but I do appreciate Councillor Heed's comments on the kind of things that he has in mind, like just this very professional oversight. Did you guys consider this? You might want to look at that, and then staff could come back and say, that was really useful. Because I just can't, just the idea of that we had a committee set up to oversight for MCAL, and then we felt like we hadn't needed one since, to establish this committee to meet quarterly when we already have so many professionals looking at Steveston. I have a hard time imagining what they could come up with every few months that's different until the next big project. So I'm just not so sure that we need that much. But staff will look at that. Yeah,
Right.
thanks.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. I'm not going to sit on the fence. I actually think it is a good idea. To be quite frank with you, there is a lack of confidence in all levels of government right now. And I understand what are we afraid of, to be quite frank with you. We talk about accountability, transparency, and confidence. I think we should be scrutinizing every project. And our level of confidence with the public is always questionable out in the committee. It's another check and balance, to be quite frank with you. It's interesting, we talked about we're doing all these things. First time in 32 years I've seen a report like this, and I just wondered why it came at this time. We've never ever been told who these principals are. I'd like to know who the 16 independent people are and what the consultants are and what the budget was for that, and also the 12 that delivered. And how much that cost so far, and what did they say? Maybe we should have some education from them as well. We tend to pass a budget and then forget about it and move on. It's nice to stand around and stick your chest out and say, hey, look what I did, but you don't follow up on it. And that was a problem with Metro Vancouver. I talked to Mayor Brody. The 4 people in the last 4 years are responsible for the overrun. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. Nobody followed up on it. Nobody had a pulse on it. What is happening today? We should have a report every month on every major project so that we know where we're going, because we tend not to be involved until it's over. And, oh yeah, we need to take some money from one of our other accounts to balance this, or we're shortcoming here.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about balancing the budget. Okay, we may have to, where do we get the money if we have to have a shortfall? So what I'm trying to say here, if I may, Your Worship, you know, we need to have more stringent responsibilities as a council. Councillor Heed has taken this in good faith, and it's a good project. Obviously, the vote will be going, sorry, Councillor Heed is going to go to refer to staff. What do we want from staff? Well, I'd like to have these kinds of things. Not only what I've done, I want reports on each of our projects on a regular basis so we know financially where we are. Staff gave us a good chart. We're doing this, we're doing this. We have the preliminary. Okay, what have we spent on Steveston, for example? I can say it down here. And how much to go? Are we within budget? Are we within range? And if we are, great, wonderful, well done, you know. But we have this responsibility to the taxpayer. So it's been interesting to hear this discussion around the table. And we'll see the reality and the proofing and the pudding. So we'll see where it goes from there.
All right, suggestion has been made for a referral motion.
Can I just sum up 30 seconds?
You got 30 seconds, then we're going to have a motion.
Well, that's fine, but I just want to sum up. It was my motion.
You haven't made the motion yet, okay? Now, you've got 30 seconds, which you have requested. Okay. Then I'm suggesting, based on the comments, that we'll have a referral to staff to look at the various options for the effective management and execution of publicly funded infrastructure projects exceeding $50 million, and a report back. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
I'd like to talk about referral.
Okay.
I'm just going to make,
referral.
yes,
Go
I'm
ahead.
just going to make mention that Mr. Irving's report was moved ahead to counterbalance this motion coming forward. We all know that. We're not dumb people. We know that. Okay? I got to tell you, I'm going to support the referral, but I'm going to say one thing. Is staff needs to take this truly as a referral and look at it, because if we just take the response that Mr. Irving brought forward, we already know the answer from staff. So that's the only point I want to make. I'll support the referral, but they have to truly look at this as a referral versus having a closed mind.
I don't know that you need to insult staff in that way.
I'm not insulting staff.
Apparently
Mayor, that report was brought forward ahead of time.
You know the discussion we've had before. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And someone move adjournment. We're now adjourned, and I'll call the closed meeting to order. May I have a motion on closure, compliance, and the agenda? Someone move it? Moved and seconded. All those in favor,